Well, hello, once again. This is me, Leonard Wells, broadcasting on Monday the 15th of November 2010. You'll have noticed a slight change. I'm wearing a trilby, a hat, man's hat. The reason I'm wearing a trilby in the house is because, first of all, it keeps my head warm. Secondly, and most importantly for my vanity, I look better in a hat, because if I take my hat off, you'll immediately notice that I'm as bald as a coot. Now, I've often used that expression, but I've no idea what a coot is, and it might be something obnoxious or something naughty. So apologies to anybody who knows what the real meaning of coot is. Now, I'll just tell you a little funny story which came to my mind before I came on air. And this was on one of the goon shows on the wireless many years ago. And Peter Sellers and his opposite number, Spike Milligan, were sitting in their office, and Peter Sellers was the inspector of police, and Spike Milligan was the sergeant. And they're sitting there in the late evening, and it's dark outside, and they're bored and nothing much to do. And suddenly a brick comes through the window with a note wrapped round it. So the inspector, Peter Sellers, immediately instructs Spike Milligan, the sergeant, to read what the note says. So he takes the elastic band from around the note, puts the stone on the table, and he reads out what the note says. It says, J. Jones, window repairs. So they immediately decide that this is something to investigate. So Peter Sellers, the inspector, says to the inspector, Spike Milligan, let's go and have a look and have a word with these people. Do you know where it is? And he says, yes, sir, I do. He said, is it far? He said, no, it's just a stone's throw. Well, I thought that was hilarious at the time, and many people have done since. Now, what I'm going to talk about today, I like to talk about stories I've read. Now, I did broadcast many moons ago, before the election, in which I said, it is my honest opinion that you should not vote Conservative at the next election. And lo and behold, some of you took my advice. It might just be total coincidence though, of course. But this has been one of my most popular videos. Around 400 people have watched that. Isn't that amazing when you think that I'm an old codger living in Lancashire? And the reason that the subject has come to my mind is I see a story in the newspapers today that some MPs, not satisfied with having gone through the horrendous expenses scandal which shocked us all to the core, some MPs are having their houses and flats in London renovated. They are then taking on a second home, which they claim as their residential home, and they're letting out the first one. So not content with a salary of approaching 100,000 a year, they want to take advantage of the system and make some money on the side as a landlord. And of course in London, with the kind of rents that they pay in London, they're probably making more money than they're making as an MP. Now, I don't know about you, but when they're expecting the rest of us to make cuts, I think it's a bit rich that they should take advantage of the rest of us to take cream with their coffee, to overgill the lily and all the rest of it, you know, too much jam on the toast, and you know what I mean. And I think they've got a blooming cheek. And if it was left to me, and they do this in Sweden, I believe, they would be given a salary something like 50,000 a year. Now, I think that's generous. If you cannot live well in the UK on £1,000 a week, then heaven help you and heaven help the rest of us. Because the government expects us pensioners to live on £150 a week maximum, if we're a single person. Now, there's a hell of a difference there, and it's of something like 6 times as much. Now, you may not know this, but once they've been an MP, as soon as they're thrown out or finished with, or they get ejected or sacked or whatever the expression is, they get a golden parachute of something like £65,000 a year, tax-free. That's to tide them over while they're looking for a job, you know. Well, when you think what they pay in unemployment benefit, job seekers allowance they call it nowadays. When I was a lad, it was unemployment benefit. And in those days, you were offered a job, and if you didn't go, they'd give you a stern look and threaten to take your unemployment benefit away. Now, how they expect you to live on something like £53 a week, job seekers allowance, I do not know. I mean, just getting on a train to go for an interview can cost you a tenner these days, thanks to the Conservatives and the way they messed about our railways. I mean, they buggered them up from the start with Mr. Beeching. They set about trying to destroy them because the Ministry of Transport was run by people who hated railways and were in favour of roads. Now, you may not know this, but this is just a little aside, because I get on my high horse about transport. But a motor car is incredibly inefficient. Less than 10% of the energy in your gallon of petrol, which you pay an arm and a leg for, actually reaches the wheels. Apart from the poison fumes you send out the back and the fact that it's an extremely dangerous way to travel. Statistically, it's incredibly dangerous. Now, a steel wheel on a steel rail, which means a tram or a railway train, is 600% more efficient than a rubber tire on a rubber wheel. Wouldn't you think, when the planet is supposed to be dying, that we would stop thinking about motor cars and start thinking about putting trams everywhere? Because they're a nice way to travel. You can sit and read a book and read a paper without all this hassle of wondering where you're going to park and paying for insurance and tax and wondering if you're going to go through a red light by accident. So that's my little tale for today, and I hope you found it interesting. It's the second one I put on today, but the first one wearing a hat. Now, the third reason I'm going to wear this hat is that from now on, this will be my trademark. I will be the man in the hat. So watch out for me, and I hope you find it sufficiently interesting to watch in your hundreds of thousands. I know it's not likely to happen at my age. If I was a tall blonde and good looking, wearing a low cut dress, you might do that, but that's the way the world is, unfortunately. So cheerio for now. God bless while it's still legal in the UK to say God bless. Take care, and that's all for now, folks.